Okay, so if you've been playing Commander for a while, you've probably come across the term Simic Value deck with no real wincon. It's the idea that the green helps accelerate your mana, the blue helps keep you draw cards, so you generate a lot of value, but you don't really have a lot of ways to convert that value into a win. So you're just playing creature spells and hoping for the best. So we have the term Simic Value deck with no real wincon, populating Commander tables everywhere. Well, imagine for a moment that we had a Simic deck that's primary design philosophy was actually winning the game, where it had lots of different win cons built in, and at any point in the game, it had some avenue to go for the win, even if it was behind. A few months ago, my friend Ben asked me to help him build a commander deck. It would be his first deck, and potentially only deck for a while, as his primary focus is being a new dad and also running his golf YouTube channel, which, if you have any interest in golf, please go check out the links in the description. So I wanted to make sure that I built him a deck that had a lot of replayability. Now, just like with golf, Ben is really meticulous about improving his craft at different disciplines. So the priorities for the deck: making sure the deck has a high level of replayability, making sure the deck feels consistent, and that the pilot has a lot of agency about what they're going to do at any given point in the game, and also, most importantly, that the deck has outs that it can play towards even if it's feeling behind. Like most new Magic players, Ben took a liking to green, and he also quite likes drawing cards, so he decided he also wanted the deck to be blue. So we arrived on Simic. And after showing him a bunch of different commander options, we decided we'd build it around Momir Simic Visionary. Momir is a toolbox commander, which is going to be super helpful in keeping the pilot feeling like they have a lot of agency throughout the game, as they can use his tutor ability to go grab different creatures that suit different situations based on the game state. When you cast a green creature spell, Momir will tutor a creature to the top of your library, and when you cast a blue creature spell, we'll check the top of the library, and if it's a creature, we'll put into our hand. So naturally, Wizards is kind of saying, hey buddy, why don't you play creatures that are both blue and green, and you get to tutor creatures directly into your hand. Now, although there's some validity to this, and we will be playing good creatures that are both blue and green, we have to realize the ability of casting a blue creature is significantly worse than the ability of casting a green creature, and we'll be prioritizing casting creatures that are green. Looking at EDH Rec to see what other people are doing, there seems to be a common theme of playing a lot of mana creatures, which, makes sense. Mana creatures have a lot of advantages. They're cheap creatures you can play on early turns, which it can help stack your deck to grab the next type of creatures that you want to play, so you have like a nice curve out. There also seems to be a lot of +1/+1 counter synergies, which, I don't know, I guess Simic's good at +1/+1 counters. Sure, the first EDH Rec guy did it and everyone copied him. I don't know, I think the archetype +1/+1 counters is kind of weak. Feels like we're lowballing Momir's full power if we're going with +1/+1 counters, so we're gonna avoid that path. Talking about mana creatures for a moment. Mana creatures are one of Green's biggest strengths, but in Commander especially, one of their biggest vulnerabilities. Accelerating your mana is really good. Creatures that can chump block or sometimes even attack, also good. But losing that mana advantage when your creatures are inevitably hit by a board wipe, not so good. Creatures that put real lands into play hit all the same strengths with less downside. A lot of this has to do with the fact that Commander is a board wipe format and not a land destruction format. Generally speaking, most decks are going to be playing a handful of board wipes, and very few decks are running any kind of land destruction. So it's better to put your investment in creatures that are going to put real lands into play than creatures that are going to lose that mana advantage if they get caught up in a board wipe. Now, because casting green creature spells does the tutor effect and the blue creature spells just checks the top card of your library, if you cast green creature spells and when they enter draw you a card, it basically supplements the fact that they're not both blue and green, and they're easier to cast as well. I feel like this archetype of creature doesn't get a lot of love in Commander because people are more interested in creatures that have really flashy board presence and aren't really thinking about managing other resources besides board presence, like for example, your card advantage or your mana advantage, or maybe even the cards in your library or your life total. And because we're only thinking about board presence, we're generally more attracted to big, flashy creatures instead of little creatures that can help keep your hand in check. There are lots of different resources you can leverage towards winning a game. So these little creatures are great as they keep your hand size feeling full. And another benefit of having these little 1/1 dorky creatures into play is that they're going to contribute to our first way of winning the game, which, unsurprisingly, is Craterhoof Behemoth. Resist the urge to block with your little ramp creatures and your little draw creatures on early turns. So when the timing is right and you have enough creatures in play, you can go tutor for Craterhoof Behemoth, slam it into play, and remove a player. Something that is going to help you win games when playing this deck is always doing calculations in your head of thinking, if I were to play Craterhoof right now, would I have enough damage to eliminate a player? And don't get too sidetracked on removing multiple players at once. If you can remove one player with a Craterhoof Behemoth, for example, on turn 6, you should go for it. Prioritize the player that you think has the best tools equipped to deal with your deck specifically, maybe the deck that's running the most board wipes, as that's what naturally a Simic deck is going to be most weakest against, and just go for it. The great news about this deck is we have a lot of ways to recycle our wincons, so even if, for example, we play Craterhoof, it gets removed, we have ways to rebuy it from the graveyard and try again, or we have other wincons that we can pivot into. Mass Landfall Payoff. With our huge ramp suite, we can pivot into a mana/landfall advantage that's going to win easily. For generic value, or if your hand is just low on spells, you can go grab Tatiova or AC to turn those lands in hands into new cards, and if your hand is flooded with creatures, you can go grab things like Beast Whisperer to refill your hand with potentially more lands. Once you're good on cards though, our next avenue for going for the win is Scoot Swarm. Scoot Swarm, when paired with our Mass Landfall theme, is easily going to run away with the game as it's exponential and can go around any wall of defense. Here's a really cute interaction, by the way. If you're planning on getting Scoot Swarm and you have 3 extra mana that turn, you can go grab Woodland Bellower instead, and it can go grab Scoot Swarm or any other non-legendary mana value 3 or less green creature. In the same regard, if you want a mana value 6 creature, you can go grab Fierce Empath first if you have 3 extra mana to just put another 1/1 into play. And what's cool is that Woodland Bellower and Fierce Empath can see each other, so if you have 6 extra mana on any turn, you can put them both into play if you just want to put more bodies into play and you don't have another way to draw cards. So, Scoot Swarm obviously is a great threat at running away with the game, especially when paired with things like Scapeshift. So if at any point in the game you top deck Scapeshift, consider using Momir to go grab Scoot Swarm to flood the board with endless 1/1s and go for the win. Alternatively, Springheart and Nantuko also does a great Scoot Swarm impression, although it might need to be paired with Craterhoof Behemoth to actually get to the finish line, as it's not exponential like Scoot Swarm is. After casting Scapeshift and sacrificing all your lands and go getting new ones, you can also follow up with casting Lumra to double your mana and reanimate all the lands you just sacrificed on your board, which of course is going to push you really far ahead, and it's going to do crazy things for all the landfall triggers that the deck has built in. Next way we're going to win is with a card called Biovisionary. So Biovisionary says when you have 4 copies of it in play on your end step, you win the game. So at any point in the game, once you have 8 mana, which of course we're going to have a little bit ahead on curve because we're a green deck, we can cast Aggressive Biomancy targeting Biovisionary, pass to our end step, and win the game. To be extra safe, you can wait till you have 11 mana, so you can perform casting the creature and then copy it on the same turn, so Biovisionary doesn't go a whole turn being vulnerable to removal. But even if he does die, like I was saying earlier, there are ways for us to rebuy him. When it feels like one of our paths to winning is getting interrupted by some particular line of play, we can always try and pivot into another one, and of course, if we feel like we can just try again, like rebuying Craterhoof, we can also just do that. Setting up an engine is another really key way of that we're going to win. With Rashmi and Momir in play, each creature you cast has essentially perfect cascade, where when you cast a green creature spell, let's say it's mana value 4, first, tutor off Momir, a 3-mana creature off the top, then resolve Rashmi to reveal the top card, and because it costs 1 less, you can cast it for free. If you cast a creature spell that's both blue and green, you can stack your triggers like this, where you do Momir's tutor effect, then Rashmi's reveal effect, casting it for free, and then Momir's blue to reveal the top card of your library effect. So that way you get the free cascade, and potentially you get to draw an extra card if there's a creature on the top of your library. Prime Speaker Vanifar also lets you build a chain of value with your Enter the Battlefield creatures, chaining your way up to your threats all the way up to Craterhoof through your mana curve. The deck intentionally tries to have solid options at each in the mana value slots, so that Vanifar always has a decent selection of cards to go grab. However, she increases the skill requirement of the deck a lot, as you need to start learning what the mana value of different creature spells are in the deck, so that when you activate Vanifar, you don't go in blind. Weird interaction is that she also provides a sacrifice outlet, which can be really relevant. Perhaps you need to sacrifice a creature, like one, for example, that you steal with Sower of Temptation. Now, this brings me to my next category that the deck runs, which is defense. Naturally, as a toolbox deck, the deck is paired with tons of answers for different types of situations and matchups. We can destroy all artifacts and enchantments, destroy all flyers, steal a big scary creature, bounce a non-land permanent, fog combat damage, rebuy a card from a graveyard, so perhaps we can fog combat damage multiple turns in a row if we're behind, exile a graveyard, gain some life, copy a creature. We've got fight spells, stun counters, draw cards, draw lands, ramp, set up annoying blockers, play at instant speed to play around counters, or set up flash blocking threats to discourage attacks, mana sink threats, resilient threats, non-creature permanent removal, protection. Now, the deck isn't really running any functional board wipes. There are a couple cards that, depending on how hard you squint your eyes, you can maybe call a board wipe. You can choose to add Cyclonic Rift into the deck. I just didn't, but it's an excellent card. Generally speaking, this deck wishes to be the threat and put the onus on other players to use their removal spells and board wipes to slow you down. That being said, as playing as the onboard threat player on the table, make sure you don't overextend into a board wipe if you sense that one is coming. So if you or another player is really getting ahead, perhaps instead of overcommitting your creatures to the board, use your mana into a mana sink creature and keep your cards in hand so that you can populate the board post-wrath. When playing the deck, it's extremely important that you prioritize hitting every single land drop and ramping. This deck does not function well without a lot of mana. And a large reason that ends up winning games is by mana advantage over any other type of advantage. Don't think, oh, I won because I casted Craterhoof Behemoth. Think, oh, I won because I had so much mana that I could cast Craterhoof Behemoth, most likely ahead of schedule. Also, the faster that you get Momir out in play, the faster you can start setting up your draws. Keep in mind, Momir is going to be a Lightning Rod for removal, so there is an argument to waiting until you can follow up casting Momir with casting like a 2-drop creature, just so you can guarantee you get the 1 tutor out of it before it's your turn again and he's dead before you get to use it. Also, if you have a really good hand and you have cards that you can curve out with, you can also just hold off on casting Momir. You don't always have to prioritize casting Momir right away. Wait until there's a clear opportunity or a signal to, oh, okay, I'm going to cast Momir because I really need to go get a specific card. When playing Scapeshift, make sure to keep your eye on the deck's total land count for how many lands are in your library/graveyard so you don't end up running out of lands by sacrificing too many and not having enough ones to put into play. This deck is running a nice clean, even 40 lands. This is to ensure you hit every land drop in addition to your ramp. Remember, it's not really ramp if you miss land drops. The deck's mana is very heavily leaning green, as it's essentially a green deck that has some blue cards, and it also ensures that we don't run ever into fixing problems on early turns. Now, you could just play more expensive mana fixing to get around this, but I personally really like making my 2-color decks primarily in 1 color over the other, so that I can just have more effective mana for way cheaper. Little side note, the deck is technically playing a couple snow basics for specifically Icefang Kotal, which, you know, you don't have to do. It's a small benefit, but if you have some snow basics anyways, you might just throw them in. So when you cast your early ramp spells that grab a basic, maybe just go grab the snow basic just in case you happen to draw Icefang Kotal. Now, get this, the deck's not playing Sol Ring. And I know you might be like, what? How could you not play Sol Ring? Okay, the deck, it does not need Sol Ring, okay? It doesn't take advantage of colorless mana very well. The deck is also a heavy landfall deck, so getting a land into play every single time is going to have way more value than just accelerating your mana, as you have many, many creatures that care about putting lands into play, and also it's a heavy green deck. We just don't need it. We have enough ramp. Sol Ring can a lot of times do more harm than good in the social setting of Commander, where Sol Ring is only really powerful if you get it on an early turn, and then everyone has the likelihood of focusing you anyway. I also find it pretty cute that Bane of Progress can't really hurt us because we're not playing any of our own artifacts. Now, the deck is also running Mystical Tutor, which you can decide to not play if you want to. The Mystical Tutor being in here increases the win percentage of the deck quite a bit, and Ben wanted the deck to have a really good win percentage, so you can decide to not play it. But if you do play Mystical Tutor in the deck, don't be afraid to use a turn 1 Mystical Tutor to go grab a Cultivate. It is so important for the deck's overall win percentage that it has an excellent start at curving out its mana than anything else. Having an opening hand that has 2 parts of your combo in your hand is less effective for a win than having a hand that has a lot of ramp off the start. Because, okay, great, I have my A+B cards in my hand for the win, but I can't cast them because I don't have enough mana anyways, so generally speaking, it's more important that we just prioritize in our early turns, just getting a whole bunch of lands into play and ramping out, and we'll draw into those wincons when we need to eventually. What's really amazing is that Momir can basically get the creature half of our win combos, the part A, and Mystical Tutor can go grab the instant and sorcery halves, part B. So in the combination of the two, our consistency of going for these kind of win cons are even higher. The deck is playing Arcane Denial. It's functionally really the only decent counterspell when it comes to Commander, and just a bit about playing counterspells in Commander, at least in this deck, we want to be really selfish. If we can help it, let's save Arcane Denial to protect our own combo over countering someone else's spell, unless their spell is quite literally going to win them the game, or more or less win them the game. We should be trying to save our counterspells to protect our own avenue for winning and be selfish. So that's it. If you're looking for a deck that's going to increase the thoughtfulness of how you play Commander, start thinking about what cards your deck plays, start thinking about what the mana value of the cards in my deck are, start thinking about your curve out, thinking about what is my win con, what am I drawing into, what's my play from here, and just finding the line to your victory as opposed to just playing kind of off the top and not being very conscientious. I think it's a really good deck to try out. Anyways, if you got this far, please consider subscribing. The deck list is in the description. If you like the deck or you played it yourself, let us know how it went in the comments. And I'll catch you in the next one.